first-time mom from Milburn, New Jersey. From the time I got married, I knew I wanted to start a family. Unfortunately, after years of trying, I failed to conceive. My husband and I decided to give IVF a try, and luckily I was successful. I became pregnant with twins, and I was overjoyed at the thought of having 2 little ones join my family. Sadly, my pregnancy ended in tragedy when one twin died in vitro at 32 weeks and the other baby was born 9 days later, weighing only 3 pounds, 3 ounces. My initial plan was for me to return to work part-time as my salary was 40% of my family's income. But with a fragile baby who was on the verge of failure to thrive, I resigned from my job as a human resources manager and took on a more important role, being a mom. A year and a half later, I underwent another IVF cycle with the hopes of giving my daughter a sibling, and once again became pregnant with twins. At 35 weeks pregnant, I came down with 103 fever and was rushed to the hospital by my husband. By the following day, things had taken a turn for the worst as my lungs had collapsed and I had to be placed on a respirator. My doctor performed an emergency C-section to help save my life. I bled out so horribly during this procedure that I needed a blood transfusion. I went into congestive heart failure and was placed in a medically induced coma. The doctors told my husband I only had a 25% chance of survival. I'm here today, so obviously I did make it. Thank you. But I did return home as a very ill woman with a 2-year-old and premature twins to take care of. Unfortunately, I was too ill to take care of my twins, and we had to hire a baby nurse. It was a whopping $1,000 a week. This was beyond our means, and we had to dip into our savings every week for the next 3 months. Fast forward 9 months later, and unbelievably, I got pregnant naturally after all this time. At this point, I was on 3 different heart medications and still in my recovery phase. I consulted my cardiologist and my obstetrician, and neither one could guarantee that I would live through this pregnancy. So I made the difficult decision, and I got an abortion. I was fortunate that my husband's insurance plan covered this procedure, since this was life-saving health care for me. We would have been forced to once again dip into our depleted savings. As a young family, money was tight, and I'm so grateful that the procedure was covered by insurance with only a small deductible. No person ever should have to contemplate not getting an abortion due to the cost. There are so many women and families struggling to make ends meet, and cost should not be the deciding factor on whether or not a woman can get an abortion. All women deserve to be able to access free abortion care through their insurance. I would like to personally thank Governor Murphy for standing up for women's rights. A woman's health care and well-being not only affects her, but affects her whole family, and by extension, society. We need more governors like ours that truly care about women's health. Now it is my privilege to introduce the Governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy.
Thank you. Monica, what courage. God bless you, not only to have gone through what you've gone through, but to stand up and
Thank you.
And lay your story out for us. Let's hear it from Monica one more time. I'm told your son is here.
Yes, he is.
Where is your son?
Right there.
Jake? Let's hear it for Jake. Nice to meet you. Wow. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And again, Monica, thank you for your testimony and advocacy and your personal courage. God bless you. I could recognize the group up with me by name. I think I said to them backstage that we probably don't have enough time for that, but I'm deeply humbled by the folks who have come out today. A cavalcade of legislative stars, advocates from all over the state, labor leaders, concerned citizens, to each and every one of them who are standing with me or sitting before me. I say thank you. It means a lot. It's a statement, and that's what we need to make, given what we're dealing with, a statement. I want to, in particular, recognize 2 members of the Assembly, Mila J.C. and Raj Mukherjee, and we're going to hear from each of them in a few moments. But they're representing, as I say, a cavalcade of stars of elected officials and leaders. So thank you all for joining us today. 5 months ago, when I signed the Freedom of Reproductive Choice Act into law, I did so to ensure that every generation of New Jerseyans would be guaranteed the right to control their own bodies and to decide whether and when to become a parent. We were able to achieve this historic legislation, and it was not easy, thanks in great part to the persistent and outstanding leadership of several folks, and by name, former Senator Loretta Weinberg, former Senate President Steve Sweeney, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, and our current Senate President Nick Scuteri. I thank each of them and all the other folks who stood with us then and now for their foresight and their leadership. But at that time, there were also some who claimed that we were being alarmist and that the Supreme Court would never overturn Roe v. Wade. That was 5 months ago. Today, it is clearer than ever that in the coming weeks, a right-wing majority on the U.S. Supreme Court likely will take a wrecking ball to 50 years of its own precedent and for the very first time in American history, overturn a decision in order to diminish our rights. Here, as almost always is the case, saying "I told you so" brings exactly no satisfaction. Now, as we revisit the work we did in January to codify New Jerseyans' right to reproductive freedom into law, we remain steadfast in our commitment to ensuring that all New Jerseyans have access to reproductive health care, including abortion, and we stand with women across the nation who are facing inevitable hardships on the horizon. Today, I would like to announce that we are proposing legislation to ensure access to the reproductive rights we recently codified into law, because we know that without access, rights mean nothing. The proposed legislation revisits two very important provisions that were left out of the final Freedom of Reproductive Choice Act. The first part codifies into state law regulatory changes that expand New Jersey's pool of potential abortion providers to include advanced practice nurses, midwives, and physician assistants. The second part mandates that insurance plans in New Jersey cover abortion with no cost sharing or out-of-pocket costs. A person's ability to access abortion care should not depend on how much money they make. If we're going to guarantee the right to an abortion, we need to guarantee access to an abortion. In addition, I'm recommending two new proposals. The first protects medical providers and patients who provide or receive abortion care in New Jersey from legal actions initiated by states which have outlawed abortion. And the second establishes a reproductive health access fund. The fund would provide clinical training grants to expand the number of healthcare providers with abortion training, grants to at-risk healthcare sites for security, and additional funding to assist providers in providing, in turn, reproductive healthcare services to uninsured and underinsured women. I hope this proposed legislation makes our position in New Jersey obvious. I hope it brings hope to all of the advocates, many of whom are here, who are working so hard across the nation and this state to protect reproductive rights. And I hope it brings relief to anyone in another state who needs to come to New Jersey for necessary and safe health care. And on that note, I would like to add that we will not be cooperating with any out-of-state investigation into our health care providers. So we will not be cooperating with any out-of-state investigation into healthcare providers that seek to punish anyone, patient, provider, counselor, friend, Uber driver, you name it, for providing abortion care. I am alarmed by the potential reversal of Roe v. Wade, and I think we're probably all in violent agreement as it relates to that alarm. Taking these steps will not only ensure that all women have access to the reproductive rights enshrined in New Jersey law, but will also, and just as importantly, I think, send a message to women across the nation that we simply will not go backwards. We understand the threat that restricting abortion care poses to so many. We understand that doing so pushes pregnant individuals outside of the medical landscape and places them in danger of surveillance, punishment, and criminalization. No one should be criminalized for getting the care they need. Abortion is health care, and health care decisions should be left up to the individual. Your body belongs to you. I do not know how to be more clear. Once again, I am proud to see our state leading the way forward, and I'm grateful to all those, again, who stand beside us, including on this very day, either standing or sitting with us. I want to especially thank the Thrive Coalition, and again, reiterate my thanks to my friend and former Senator Loretta Weinberg, whose work laid the foundation for today's announcement. I want to also share again, as I did in January, and Loretta was at my side then, that I understand how personal, complex, and challenging this issue can be for many, including yours truly. As our state legislators take stock of what is happening to reproductive rights around the country, I look forward to the dialogue and hope they will move this legislation quickly, as we have no time to waste. And now it is my great honor to introduce another friend, a legislator who is always standing up for rights, regardless of which rights we're talking about in today. It's reproductive freedom, it's right to abortion. Please help me welcome Assemblywoman Mala Jaycee.
Thank you, Governor. This is a tough day. With the expected reversal of Roe versus Wade for the first time in 3 generations, the reproductive rights of women in the United States are in grave peril. Thanks to the foresight of Senator Loretta Weinberg, Assemblywoman Valerie Venneri Huddle, Thrive New Jersey, Planned Parenthood, and the ACLU, together with the unwavering support of Governor Murphy, this coalition ensures New Jersey women will continue to benefit from the hard-fought and won rights of Roe and Casey. Being a lead sponsor of the Reproductive Freedom of Choice Act and helping shepherd its passage into law is certainly one of the most important things I have done in my service in the Assembly. It was my view last January that codification of existing New Jersey laws enshrining these rights was not enough. Recent events have solidified that belief, and it has required of us that we make sure that equity accompanies access. It is an absolute imperative that all the women of our state have full available access to quality reproductive health services. To achieve this, the entire spectrum of the protections designated in the Reproductive Freedom Act must also be enshrined in the laws of New Jersey. Equity demands nothing less than an eradication of the financial barriers, as the governor mentioned, to obtaining contraception and prenatal services, including abortion. Assuring availability of high-quality reproductive services for all women can only be accomplished through mandatory private insurance coverage without copays. expanded coverage for those ineligible for Medicaid due to immigration status through codification of the benefits of the Reproductive Health Care Fund. Equity demands not just the availability of services, but access to those services, and it cannot be predicated upon the size of one's paycheck or the scope of available insurance coverage. By taking this most necessary next step, we will truly give all women of New Jersey the right and the power to make the most personal and important of decisions, free from government interference and financial considerations. We can accomplish this, and it is a moral imperative that we succeed. We cannot fail in this undertaking because we won't go back. Thank you.
Mila, thank you. Amen. We will not go back, and thank you for your leadership on this and on so much else. Again, Mila and her colleague are going to represent this august group of superstar legislators. Please help me welcome another great leader, Assemblyman Raj Mukherjee.
Thank you, Governor. Whatever happens in Washington, here, a woman's fundamental right of reproductive autonomy is now enshrined into New Jersey law because of the work undertaken in the lame duck session, championed by this governor and the members of our legislature, including the people standing here today and now Senate President Scutari and Speaker Coughlin. Now, if you feel differently about protecting a woman's right over her own body than I do, I respect you. And if your personal beliefs or faith or originalist view of the Constitution guide you to a different view on Roe v. Wade than I hold, I still have love for you. A little over 6 months ago, and for the second time in my life, I was blessed to listen to the heartbeat and watch my daughter on an ultrasound month after month. And I get it, but this discussion shouldn't be about the personhood of a fetus or when life begins or anyone's personal views on abortion care. It's about that deeply personal, immensely life-changing medical decision of a woman about whether a woman should bear and deliver a child, and whether government, as at least 26 states are virtually certain to do once Roe is formally overturned, can force childbirth upon a woman. That is not a decision that should be left to the whim of politicians or any group of men in a back room. And wherever you stand, on the debate about reproductive autonomy, I think we all agree the ideal number of abortions, if it could be helped, would be 0 if that were possible. But then let's join together in making low-cost or cost-free childcare available to all. Let's join together to expand TANF and safety net supports and Medicaid. Let's enact paid parental leave nationally following New Jersey's lead. And let's expand our own state's coverage to meet European standards. So now, reproductive care, like all health care, must not only be legal, but also accessible. And expanding access to contraception and ensuring that uninsured and underinsured women can access birth control and prenatal care and requiring health plans to cover this helps avoid and reduce abortion care. Expanding access to family planning services achieves a similar outcome. Now, if you thought we were being alarmist when we were moving this legislation, hear me today. If you Westlaw or LexisNexis all of the federal court decisions that cite Roe v. Wade and its progeny throughout the country to offer and afford Americans other rights we now consider fundamental, but also are nowhere to be found in the actual text of the Constitution authored in the late 1700s by all men, as Justice Alito would prefer. Marriage equality is in danger. Desegregation might not have been required by our law under that reading, and so many other fundamental rights that we hold sacred but take for granted. And that's not being alarmist. So as other states are promoting vigilantism against women, we as a state can serve as a beacon of protecting women's rights while they are being chipped away in other jurisdictions. And Governor, you and I owe that to our daughters and future generations. Thank you all for being here today.
Great job. Really great job. Raj, absolutely terrific remarks. Thank you for your leadership, Mila. Same to you and to all of the great legislators up here with us today. Let me now please invite up a couple of more speakers before we wrap. Honored to have with us Jean Cicero, who is from the ACLU NJ. Jean, come on down.
Thank you, Governor Murphy, for your commitment to reproductive health and civil rights. And we at the ACLU of New Jersey and our coalition partners have been proud to work alongside lawmakers like Governor Murphy, like Assemblywoman Jaycee, like Assemblyman Mukherjee, and all of the lawmakers behind me. I have to say, as I was waiting for the event to start, seeing all of the lawmakers kind of funnel in was really moving and heartening. And we're really looking forward to working with all of them on this new legislation. And of course, the patients, providers, and advocates have been doing so much work over the years to protect and expand the right to abortion care. And core to this fight for justice are principles of equity and access. And so last week's news about the U.S. Supreme Court being poised to overturn Roe sent shockwaves across the country. And the draft opinion essentially says that the federal Constitution will no longer protect the right to abortion. And if that happens, half the states are poised to immediately ban abortion, and that poses an immediate threat to millions of people for public health and personal freedom. For decades, advocates and organizers have been sounding the alarm on the unrelenting attacks on abortion rights across the U.S. Year after year, we've seen hundreds of harmful restrictions introduced or passed in state legislatures across the country, but not here. We saw the Supreme Court do nothing in the face of an unconstitutional Texas law banning abortion after 6 weeks. And these restrictions have devastating consequences, particularly for communities that are already facing the brunt of systemic racism and barriers to health care. And that includes immigrants, communities of color, LGBTQ+ communities, and people who are low income. In response, advocates and communities have been working relentlessly to protect and expand access to reproductive health care, and New Jersey is one of the states that can be a model for access to this critical health care. After years of advocacy, the Freedom of Reproductive Choice Act was enacted in January, and I want to thank again all of the lawmakers here that made that possible. This law codifies and bolsters our state constitutional rights and makes New Jersey's public policy unequivocally clear. New Jersey guarantees reproductive autonomy, and that includes the right to abortion care. While this represented a crucial step to protect legal rights, as we've heard, we know that New Jersey needs to go further because a right to abortion care doesn't mean much if you can't access that care when you need it. And so even as we speak, there are too many people in our state facing insurmountable economic barriers, like insurance plan exclusions, high co-pays and deductibles, or not even having access to insurance. And that prevents access to time-sensitive care. And so today we're so grateful for the announcement of this new legislation. It will require insurance coverage for abortion care. It will eliminate out-of-pocket expenses. It will ensure that all New Jerseyans, regardless of income level, immigration status, gender identity, can access the care they need. Reproductive freedom is a fundamental human right, and in this unprecedented moment, New Jersey can stand firmly in the values of equity and justice by ensuring that the right to abortion care is not only protected, but that all communities have meaningful access to it. And we look forward to working with Governor Murphy and this legislature in swiftly passing this legislation and making the reality of rights, equity, and access true here in New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, and amen to all, and thank you and ACLU for everything you do in this space and in so many. Last but not least, please help me welcome Dr. Kristen Brandy, who's representing Physicians for Reproductive Health. Dr. Brandy, come on down.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Kristen Brandy. I am a Latina, a queer woman, a lifelong New Jerseyan. I'm the chair for Physicians for Reproductive Health, a board-certified OBGYN, and a proud abortion provider here in New Jersey. Thank you. We are at a devastating moment for reproductive rights, justice, and freedom. The leaked draft opinion of the Dobbs Supreme Court case made clear what many of us in reproductive health feared, and what is actually the reality for thousands of women in states that are already restricting abortion care. This draft opinion ignores the real needs of millions of people, their families, and their communities. It ignores the needs of patients I serve here in New Jersey and the people across the country that seek safe abortion care every day. It is clear that the courts will not save us. And when I say us, I mean all of us. Abortion restrictions impact not only abortion, but other quality reproductive health care like prenatal care, miscarriage management, and the quality and equitable maternity care. This ruling does not recognize how abortion restrictions disproportionately impact marginalized folks, people of color, people of low income, queer folks, people who are undocumented, people that already face barriers to health care on a day-to-day basis. I also mean all of us because the language in the leaked draft opinion makes it clear that the intention of some of these justices is to continue their attacks further than just abortion access, as was mentioned. There is the implication that it could impact other types of care, things like birth control and gender-affirming care, care that I provide every day and that people in New Jersey and everywhere need. That's why today's proposed legislation is so critical to our collective health and wellness in our state. New Jersey will now ensure that no matter what the courts decide, we will have real access to abortion coverage without concerns of insurance coverage, access to birth control, access to prenatal care, all types of health. I am proud to live and practice in a state that acknowledges that attacks on abortion are attacks on all reproductive health care. I've been saying this a lot in the past week or so, but let's be clear. This is not a drill. Health care will be drastically different if this ruling proceeds as it predicted it will. I want every New Jerseyan that's listening and everyone in the country to know, just to know, that abortion is still legal in all 50 states for now. People should go to their appointments if they have them. They should access other services like birth control if they need it. Patients deserve compassionate care, and providers deserve to be able to provide that for them. As a physician, it's my priority to ensure that patients can get the care in a way that's timely, compassionate, the care that they need and deserve. As a proud member of a community of physicians advocating across the country, we will always be loud and fight for what is just, and that will always include real access to comprehensive reproductive health care, including abortion care. Thank you all.
Thank you, Doctor. Great job. Thank you, Dr. Brandy. Before I forget, Valerie Vineri Huddle's name was mentioned, and Val deserves a shout out. So she and Loretta are no longer in the assembly, but I wanted to give her a shout out as well. She stood by my side on that cold January day as well, and she was in this fight for a lot of years. Thank you very much, Dr. Brandy. We'll take a couple of quick questions, please.
Do you expect Cicero and Hoffman to support this? Have you gotten any assurance that they would vote this for a vote?
Yeah, I won't speak for either of them. They're outstanding leaders. We had a good conversation yesterday. I saw the speaker again briefly today, but we've been in a lot of conversations with legislators, including leadership, and we shall see where this goes. Catherine? Listen, this is, as I mentioned, this is a deeply personal reality, but as Dan Benson said, where's Dan go? We have to meet the moment, and it won't necessarily be easy, and it won't be overnight, and it won't be a light switch, but we have no choice. We have no choice. Dustin.
Why not push for, on the row specifically, why not push for a constitutional amendment not concerns that New Jersey could turn into a sort of safe haven in the United States?
Where you have,
Where you have an influx of people seeking abortion, and perhaps that's what the most concerned among them.
I mean, on the first, I haven't been asked the question. On the first, I don't think what we're doing today would preclude that. And secondly, I think this is a here and now moment. I think my colleagues, my legislative partners would agree. Anything we can do quickly to get something accomplished here, I think is the order of the day. Listen, women are welcome in New Jersey, period. And if that's what it comes to, if that's what it comes to, that's what it comes to. But I said specifically, and it will be an element of this proposed legislation, that we're not going to cooperate with other states that try to take shots at people or at us or any other entity or individual. We stand proudly on the side of women, period. Hi, Brenda. I'm stunned to see you in Trenton, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, not yet. That's something we're still machining, and so I don't want to get out ahead of myself on that. But I think Kate McDonald is here somewhere who's been riding herd on this. I think you didn't ask this, but I'd like to think, and I defer to my legislative partners here, I'd like to think we get a bill sort of by next week-ish. And so this is an answer that will come sooner than later. Joey, how are you?
Okay. So the lead Supreme Court opinion has caused some protests outside of Justice's houses and senators' houses. Just curious whether you think that is a reasonable response to the situation.
I'm told, first of all, people have a right to protest peacefully, right, period. That's not an abstract answer for me because they do it outside of my house all the time. So this is, and they're not usually waving all five fingers at me either. So to paraphrase Brendan Byrne. But having said, let me be more sober. I'm told, and I don't know this, I'm not a lawyer, that there actually is a separate legal protection for judges, federal judges. I don't know that to be the case, but I was told that earlier today. And secondly, the emphasis is on peaceful. This state of all states, Judge Salas's son was murdered by a crazy lunatic in an awful tragedy right here in New Jersey. So let's get into rooms like this, stand up and be counted. Let there be no doubt which side of history we're on, but let's everybody be careful and respectful and peaceful. Hey, Alex.
When you talk about the fund, first of all, why frame it as a fund instead of direct state contribution or giveaway? And is it going to be all tax dollars? And if so, what do you say to people who are with their tax dollars being used to pay for abortion from out-of-state people?
Yeah, to be determined on both the amount or exactly what the fund looks like. Our folks think the most efficient way to deliver the support that's needed for folks who are either uninsured or underinsured is through a vehicle. And let's wait until we get this actually in writing, and I'll come back to you on any more details as it relates. Michael, I haven't seen you in ages. Nice to see you. I could have said it's good to see you, Michael. Yeah, I mean, Marlene Carita is actually upstairs in a few minutes to meet with me on another matter, and I should have said that up front. I think this, assuming what I've discussed and what we've discussed today comes to pass, I think that makes that a moot reality. And that's not to say that I would have predicted that we would end up here on whatever it is, May 11th, 2022. I personally never would have predicted the scope of the draft that's been leaked. As my fears were significant, they've been exceeded. But I think the fact of the matter is, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but collectively believe, I suspect everybody in this room joins me, we have to act. And that's why we're here today. So with that, I want to thank everybody, the speakers with me, obviously Monica, again, for your courage, and your son Jake, thank you for coming, man. God bless you and your family. To Mila and Raj and all the extraordinary legislators, to Jean and Kristen for your leadership and strong words, to the advocates, many of whom are in this room, thank you for standing strong and always being there, to our union brothers and sisters and other folks who are here and standing up and being counted today. God bless you all. Take care. Thank you all. Thank you all. I knew I shot you with the shoes.
I'm gonna take a picture.